system, but it's
We've
just
got
not
no
being
TV on.
projected.
Well, that's it.
Hmm? Yeah.
Is this one working, Danny? It's like,
It just doesn't have.
oh, okay, it doesn't have the red button.
So can you hear me now out there? Am I being projected on there? Okay.
No. Test, 1, 2, 3. No, nothing.
Yeah. He's picking it up through.
Ah, okay.
It's on.
Okay. The TV's on.
Can you hear us now? You guys hear that? There we go.
Yeah, there we go.
Yay.
All right.
Whew, all right.
Let's take a second to warm up.
I know.
All right.
So just make sure that you speak into the mics and that your mics are on. Okay?
Right. Conducted roll call. Before we move on to the agenda, I would like City Attorney Highsmith to report out from the closed session.
Thank you, Chair Desai. Yes, the commission met in closed session this evening with legal counsel to get a briefing on a matter of anticipated litigation. Direction was provided to legal counsel, but no action was taken.
Pass just really short documents around the dais.
Thank you. Okay,
Um,
just one copy. So.
The first item in the packet is the development standards, and it comes from our code, and this relates to chimneys. And basically, we have a section in our zoning code that says a chimney can sit in a side yard. It can sit closer to the side property line than the rest of the house. So it's always been there. It's been there pre-R1 amendments. It's still there. The issue I have is that we now have this angle plane that is capturing everything, including the chimney. So we have a portion of our code that says you can stick the chimney on the side of your house a little closer to the fence than the rest of your house, but yet this chimney can't go past the angle plane, and the nature of a chimney is that it has to be taller than the roof line, otherwise we have issues with fire. So inconsistency, and that's the first thing that you should look at. The second inconsistency is if you look at the residential canyon zone, that's the second paper making its way around. The residential canyon zone specifically says this is an angle plane, the house must stay within it with the exception of the chimney. So we've already kind of pulled the chimney out of the residential canyon zone. And for whatever reason, when we amended the new R1 code, if you look at it, it starts off the exact same. It starts off with a 10-foot height and a 45-degree angle plane, and it doesn't mention the exception of the chimney. And I know we think, oh, well, it's no big deal, but it actually is. It's unfairly dictating, I think, poor design in some ways with future development in this town. Second item is definitely not a typo. It's the issue of bedroom. And I know since I've been on the Planning Commission, it's always been a sore subject. And I know recently staff has been directed to kind of capture more spaces and label them a bedroom. But we have some, in dealing with it now, I'm seeing some trouble. And again, not on a specific project, but I kind of feel like moving forward, we need to address this. So I kind of see three issues with the way we're treating bedrooms. First of all, we've created this list of which rooms are not a bedroom. We haven't defined bedroom, but we've said the bedroom is not a kitchen, living, family, dining room, or bathroom. And basically it implies that we have this list of spaces that we can label all our rooms. And my first fear is that you could have a developer with a very open floor plan, have one big space that's kind of a kitchen, dining, family room space, and then they could theoretically label bedrooms dining rooms, because to me that list kind of implies you're allowed them as a shopping list. And once you've used up those spaces, and we're still kind of putting the burden of interpretation on staff as to whether a walk-in closet or a mudroom or a pantry off the kitchen, is that a bedroom or not? I just think it needs to have some, it needs to define what a bedroom is, not just say what it's not. I think that's it. And let me pass around. Well, you guys already have this, but this was that list of the spaces that of the list of spaces that are not considered bedrooms. And like I said, I think that's that's helpful in some ways, but I think it creates more problems because of I feel like it creates a shopping list, and once people use up those spaces, then everything else after that becomes bedrooms, but they might not necessarily have those spaces, in which case they could theoretically label bedrooms dining rooms. And I don't know if that was the intent, but that's how I read that list. That's it. Is that something that we could agendize?
Yeah, we can look at that.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
I know that this committee recognizes that lot coverage, setbacks, mass, bulk, and I think most importantly of all, architectural fit are vital components of preserving our community's uniqueness. By making sure that the general plan update properly addresses these items, you will be saving a cherished way of life for all of those who live here for years to come. Thank you.
All right, at this time, we will close audience comments and move on to the public hearing portion of tonight's meeting.
We'll have Leticia Cardoso, our senior planner, to make the staff report for this item.
Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. The next item is Certificate of Appropriateness 1401 to allow the addition of a 209 square foot storage room to the Hart Park House, also known as the Senior Center, at 222 West Sierra Madre Boulevard. This was continued from the June 5th meeting. At that meeting, you reviewed the revised design for the storage room addition provided by Commissioner Buckles. The design included a storage space within the addition. The Planning Commission continued the project to allow the Senior Community and Community Services Commissions to consider the revised design before returning to the Planning Commission. At the July 10th, 2014 meeting, the Senior Community Commission reviewed the revised design. However, it voted to approve a non-recessed trellis, that would be shown here, along the north elevation, and to replace the proposed window along the west elevation with another non-recessed trellis or tree to avoid the reduction of storage space. The Senior Community Commission also expressed concern over crime safety as items that are stored in that proposed addition would be more visible. At their July 21st meeting, the Community Services Commission also reviewed the proposed design and agreed with having the non-recessed trellis along the north elevation, but agreed with the Planning Commission in having the recessed window along the west elevation, as they felt that it was consistent with the building architecture and that inclusion of a window is appropriate because use of the room could change over time, and it could be used as another type of room in the future. The Community Services Commission did not feel that the crime safety was an issue, as there are other existing windows throughout the building. Here is
I'm taking the senior commission still disagrees with they want recommendation C. Is that where we are?
That's right. That's right.
So can we hear?
The Senior Community Commission has given their thoughts on the proposal, as well as the Community Services Commission.
So are we able to hear from them tonight?
If they're in
They wanna
attendance,
speak.
if they wish to speak.
Okay.
Yeah.
Come on up. Yeah.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Jackie Pergola. I'm the Vice Chairman of the Senior Commission, and we would urge you to vote for the number 2 alternative, again, because we feel that we need all the storage space that we can possibly get. And It is a small addition to the building. It is half the size of a two-car garage, 209 square feet. And it is fairly hidden, and we feel with the trellises on both sides that are not recessed, along with some plantings or a tree, that it would still make this addition very attractive without impinging on any of the space that is needed inside. That building is owned by the city. It is used by many, many of the...
I would like to give a personal opinion. And granted, the interior is no longer historical, but you are charged with giving the exterior, making sure that it maintains the integrity of the historic building. And looking at the rendering on the west side, it needs a window to maintain the integrity of the building. Trellises are hard to maintain, that's number 2. And if you've driven on West Grandview from Mitchalinda, you might have noticed that there are 3 trellises along a bare wall. They weren't especially attractive when they were new, but now they are askew and vines are sparse, and obviously from lack of maintenance they are not attractive at all now. You have consistently said that the design, appearance, and style of a building can't depend on landscaping. This plan is asking you to cover up the lack of design and style by landscaping. I ask you to approve alternative A, but at least with a recessed window. And at least, I think, a recessed trellis on the north side should be inset because it would conform to the style of the building. Thank you.
Compatible with the exterior of the landmark. The Community Services Commission voted unanimously to approve the Commissioner Buckles' design with a window. Thank you.
D. Alcorn on Grandview. Talk about the architectural integrity. Rather interesting, about 3 days ago, Huell Hauser had a session on the 21 missions of California. And they are consistent with this design. This is part of the culture of Southern California, or of California itself. That represents an adobe wall. That's what it is. If you look at that design, any of the missions, any of the Southern California architecture has that sort of a process with it. And I find that, I don't know how much space is going to be lost by having a window, but looking at the design, it can't be very large to having one window be the major facet for concern for having that not being in there. So I really don't know quite why it's such a sticking point, but I guess it is. But if you look at the architectural aspect of it, I think you'll have to look at being consistent with Southern California architecture. It should be like that, probably on both sides, but they're willing to compromise and not just on the north end. So I think you should consider that. Thank you.
Hi, Barbara Lee. Maybe I haven't followed this. I guess half a size garage storage unit. But those are my 2 questions. If it takes out the historical value, then take it off the registry. And if it's going to be future change, then I don't think it fits the criteria. Thanks.
Thank you. I think we've sort of morphed from applicant to public comment there. So is there anyone else in the public? We'll open it up for comment on this item. All right, we'll close public comment, bring it back to the commission.
Can I just ask one question? Is the outside of that adobe? It's stucco, isn't it? So I'm not sure what the historical nature, I mean, someone mentioned that the adobe of California architecture, so it's the inside that they're speaking about?
The style.
It's just
The style.
Window
not the
style,
material.
okay. All right.
All right, thoughts?
I'd like to have a window in there, both for the sort of historical architectural context, and also because I've worked in lots of places where rooms get changed in their use. Oh, I've worked in a lot of places where the use of rooms changes, especially when there's not very much room available. And this could end up being an office, because I've had
Footage out of this. The side window is not a deal breaker, but I think that encroachment of 18 inches, as we did the calculation on both sides, even on one side, cuts out, almost 2 feet by, 10 feet on one side. And, the outside of the building doesn't look that different to me. I don't want to say stucco is stucco, but it sort of looks like that to me. Not to detract from the historical nature of the building, but I think the rest of it still speaks for itself, and it's very little to sacrifice. It's a sort of the finding is really if it will adversely affect the integrity of the significant architectural features, and my opinion is it does not either way. And I'd be amenable to giving him the most square footage as possible.
Well, I really think that we need to go with the windows. I do agree that when you put up a trellis, you're basically, the maintenance is like lifelong for somebody to do it. And usually what happens, the person continues to live as the plants die off real quick. And basically then you have the trellis up there with nothing on it, or dead brush, and I certainly understand where that's a problem. And I don't know, maybe you get the garden society to go ahead and keep track of that, but I think that's a maintenance problem that's going to work its way into being around for a long time. I do like the fact that there is the growth in front of the windows on the.
All right, so it's my job to convince you here. I actually think the window is kind of an important element on that west side. I think that there's an integrity, whether it's historic or not, put that aside for a second, but I think the integrity of the design and the facade, I think there's a blankness there, and it looks like a total appendage added on, whereas you look at the other sides, there are those recessed windows included. So I think for consistency's sake and for just breaking that elevation up, I'd like to see the window there on the west side. On the trellis, I actually like that element. I mean, I know there may be some maintenance concerns or longevity of life. And in that regard, I think a recessed trellis alleviates some of that. I think it protects that element. It's not an appendage to the exterior of the building. I think if the trellis also were to fade into the sunset, you could have this recessed articulated element that's part of the building and the architecture that the trellis sits into. So, but I think I'm more inclined, if that eats up valuable square footage, then I would like to see that element there, whether it's recessed or not, personally. So that's kind of where I am on this. All right, on to our second item, Hillside Development Permit 1201 and Conditional Use Permit 1208.
Mr. Chairman, I will recuse myself, given the proximity of my home to this project, and given that this is the time of the Planning Commission where I get to be alone.
Okay, and Derek Purification will provide the staff report.
At the last meeting, which was on August 21st, the applicant returned. They reduced square footage. They proposed a second floor deck as well as a fully subterranean basement. The Planning Commission decided that the revisions were not sufficient enough and that additional mass needed to be shifted, reduced, or moved, and to also consider reducing ceiling heights to diminish the massing appearance of the structure. Today, the applicant is here with a revised proposal. They have removed the second floor deck, which was proposed on the August 21st meeting. This basically was removed to mitigate issues with privacy, as well as I think there was a comment at the last meeting that it appeared like it was almost like a wall, so that reduced some of the massing. The basement floor area was also reduced from 1,349 to 622 square feet. And there was also issues with the tubular fencing around the property, so that has also been removed. The total floor area now, which includes the garage, is 3,264 square feet. This number does not include the basement pursuant to Hillside. Gross floor area does not include basements or other subterranean. Thank you.
Should we go ahead and hear from the applicant?
Sure.
Can we switch it over to our?
Yeah.
Good evening, members of the Planning Commission. I'm here before you again. My name's Adele Chang with Lim Chang Rolling and Associates, the architects for the project. 5 or 6 hearings and 1 work session ago, and a good year and a half or more ago, at our very first hearing for this particular parcel, this is what we submitted. We had a very frontal and very wide frontage, 2-story volumes, and second floors that are very close, and then a porch that encroached as allowed into the front setback that's currently proposed. And here it is again without the trees in the front. Once again, whoops. Sorry, a house that's much narrower versus a much wider and taller house, with the second floor set way back. And the garage just peeking slightly from the back. And this view tells the story the best, I would say. It's kind of an aerial view to show the amount of reduced footprint and how much we have reduced the second floor mass from the beginning to right now. And here's the floor plan. This is the footprint on the first floor of the original submittal many hearings ago, and that was at a proposed 3,789 square feet, which includes a 420 square foot garage, which is exactly what you need, the minimum you need for a standard 2-car garage. And here's what our footprint looks like. We're now at 3,264 square feet, which again includes the 2-car garage. This is what the second floor looks like from the beginning. Livable mansion by any means. It is very close to what is currently the average size of house in California. I'd like to say that, I mean, of course, there are people who live in smaller homes. And then the survey I did about 4 hearings ago, maybe 5, of homes throughout, and some of you may not have been here, of homes throughout the city of Sierra Madre showed a large number of homes that are substantially larger in square footage. And I should have brought that back maybe, but if you go through your records, you'll find that to be there. I feel that we fit into the community. This was designed as a Spanish colonial home, and there are many, many examples of that style to be found in the city. A slideshow that I did 4 or 5 hearings ago, showing examples from around the city and specifically in the canyon areas, showed examples of that. And some very nice ones, and which we are trying to emulate. So I feel we really do fit into the city's aesthetic, as well as way of living with this house, or what this house is proposing as a home for families to live in. I'd like to say,
One after that?
yes, this one.
No, that's the one before it. Is there one after that?
This is the back elevation.
Mm-hmm.
I think that this is, we threw this in for the heck of it. I really do not believe
Well,
this
maybe
will be
also-
visible from anywhere.
But the view, this also shows the view from the south.
Um,
Is that-
although, yes, it
We're
does,
looking-
although there is a
southeast-
home
We're looking from the southeast corner here, right?
southeast, Russ,
Yeah.
correct.
Okay.
But you probably would never see this view because there's a slope that's quite consistent coming across, in the back.
But we would see the view from, say, the southwest corner.
You would, so the view, this view, except a little lower,
Well, this,
is what you would see more than this view.
yeah,
the-
you could also see it viewed from, looking up from the south.
Yes, except there is a lot 26 and 25, which will one day, with luck, have houses on them, which will block
Will block some portion of it, but they're lower down.
most likely the first story of it, because there's probably a slope that is about 8 feet, between 5 to 8 feet, between the next pad and this one. I have to go back to double check. So it'll block a portion of it for
Right,
sure.
but you'd be likely to still see the
A
second
portion of it, yes.
Okay, that's
But
a good
we'll,
idea.
we'll take a 8-foot plate
Yeah.
if necessary.
Yeah, a sloped ceiling would,
Yeah.
It's the first floor.
Flat.
It's a height.
9 feet, the first floor's 9 feet too, right?
Yes. Any other
Do you
questions?
have any other questions for Adele?
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. All right, so at this time, we will open to public comment on this item before us.
Marguerite Schuster, Mount Wilson Trail. Good evening, Commissioners. It appears that push has come to shove without a great deal more to say on this matter. There are indeed improvements to the plan over the initial submission, which help at least that much. But the applicant's persistent resistance to lowering the height, to more significantly reducing the overall mass of the building as a whole, and to dealing with the fact that the pad size simply does not accommodate a house of these dimensions, mean that the overall effect is, you know that we long for representatives that will defend us. Thank you.
Good evening, Terrell Willis, Carter Avenue. Ms. Chang mentioned her survey of homes that she showed 4 or 5 meetings ago, and it was a tour of large houses on large lots. This project is a large house on a small buildable area. When the lot division was first before the Planning Commission of 2004, it was denied. The Planning Commission was not opposed to a development, but it was opposed to this configuration and advised the council to reject it. 4 members of the council of 2004 succumbed to the threat of litigation, despite the public declaration by the city attorney, Michael Colantuno, that he had every expectation that we would prevail in court if it came to that. Rumor has it that we have
At this time, we'll close public comment and bring it back to the commission here to deliberate.
Actually, Chairman, can we open it? I want to ask one of the.
Oh, sure.
I think it was Ms. Willis. Did you work with the applicant, if you wanted to comment on some of the changes that were made? I think you and John Hutt, and was that you? No. No? Was it Mrs. Schuster?
Marguerite and Caroline Brown.
Okay, yeah. I was wondering, Ms. Schuster, I'd like.
Insufficient change in the bulk and the mass of the second story. So those were the major items that we were talking about. We also talked, as the Planning Commission has, and as John Hutt also did, about reducing ceiling height, and we have not seen that appear, at least, in any of the submitted plans thus far.
Okay, so there was no review of what their product was. You weren't aware of it until the meeting when you saw their presentation.
That's correct.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, my impression after the meeting at my home was that there were, not just with regard to this particular property, but also with regard to the development as a whole, more promising elements in play than were actually presented at the last Planning Commission meeting, where certain things that I understood to have been said at the meeting at my home were by at least implicitly taken back.
Okay, I see. Okay, thank you.
All right, back to the commission here.
This lot has two different sets of things it needs to apply. One has to do with the design guidelines, which is why it came back to us, and we were tasked by the city council to look at it and find ways to reduce the bulk and mass, and also the hillside ordinance. And I've talked about this before, about how this house needs to fit into the hillside zone, and even if this is a flat pad, it originally was a slope, and the houses in here need to be sensitive to the environment of the hillside there, and find a way to minimize how large they seem, how large the bulk and mass looks, so that it fits into the natural environment that still exists around it in the hillside. And that's why this still seems to be a very large, especially on the second floor. I think that if the ceiling heights were lowered, that would be extremely helpful. It would make less of it, if each floor were lowered a foot, less of the second floor would be sticking up behind the subsequent houses to be built. And I think that moving some of the bulk into the basement was really good, but I think.
I'm not a design person, but it seems like you can maybe configure it a little bit to give that, because when I look at their very first design and and the one that she even put up in the design, I mean, when you look at those two stories, they sort of stick up, and especially what Gina was saying from the south end, which is where most people are going to be viewing that from when they're looking up the hill. It still has the same kind of appearance. Yes, it's articulated, yes, it's pushed back from the front, but it's really the side view. So I don't know what changes can be made there, but the first and foremost could be the ceiling heights.
Yeah, I'd like to agree with Bill's comments and Gina's, and I think the building is still large and too big for the site, but I think there are some measures that the developer could still consider to get it down to a reasonable mass, mostly with the height. I see real good changes that have happened on the second floor level in the size of it, and I also think that there's ways to possibly reduce some of the mass of the second floor. Yeah, I think we're real close, and yeah, I think we're almost there.
But still reduce square footage, or reduce the bulk and the mass. And studying it a bit, I was able to sort of look at the floor plan you have on the second floor. And I think there is potential to take out some of the bulk and the mass, but still retain the exact program that you have up there, which currently consists of a master bedroom suite and 2 additional bedrooms which share a bathroom, and they're pertinent closet spaces. But, you know, I took a little bit of time studying that and was able to come up with a solution where if you were to reduce, for example, bedroom 2 by 10%, and the master bedroom by around 10%, you could retain bedroom 3 without any reduction. And I was able to study this and get about another 187 square feet out of the second floor, but still retain the exact function that you have. And the sizes of the rooms, which isn't pertinent to the bulk and the mass, but would be commiserate to what you already have in the plan. It would require you to change a little bit of the first floor, but not take anything out. It would require you to shift your staircase in your powder room. But, you know, alluding to what the other commissioner stated, there is a solution, so to speak, out and sort of start to make this house fit a little better from its massing standpoint. I think also in conjunction with the height reduction, which I think would be something worth looking at in specific, I think for us, seems reasonable to kind of reduce, you know, somewhere in the magnitude of a foot each on each floor, but I understand there may be some concerns there, but I think the vaulting potentially of the second story spaces could be a good solution.
Yeah.
But a definite reduction in the height, overall height and the scale would help the project as well, and would help the house sit further down on the site. I know, you know, in practical matters, does a foot make a difference? I think in this case it actually could, you know, and I know that may sound silly, but I think playing with that could make a difference on the site, especially with some of those longer views when you're looking further down from the south to the west. You know, and as you look at these sites that they start to cascade up, the other building pads surrounding it, I think, given the unique topography and the nature of that area, a foot reduction on each floor of the height and scale could affect that. So I would agree that would be something that would be part of a component of getting this project kind of where I think it should and needs to be.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think one of the things
we've been to so many hearings. I don't know, maybe you guys like doing this over and over, but I'm getting kind of tired of it. I wonder, I mean, my preference would be to ask for an up or down vote, but if you could conceive of conditions, if it was an approval, for instance, a possible condition to lower the overall height by a foot, to decrease bedroom 2 by 10%, as you've mentioned. I mean, I can completely imagine as you were talking exactly how you were viewing it, maybe even bedroom 3. If you can attach some of those conditions, I'd be real happy. Of course, my happiness doesn't matter.
Should we take a 5-minute recess? All right, we're going to take a 5-minute recess here and then reconvene.
to reiterate the points that you identified. I was able to copy down some, but not necessarily all. And it would be helpful to have those to be able to consider them in more detail than we're able to do tonight, should you decide to deny it because of that.
Well, I can tell you, I don't think we would like to make it conditions of approval, partly because I think some of the things that need to happen to achieve and to get us where we want to be, I think are plan manipulations.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we would be most comfortable seeing those implemented
Mm-hmm.
and reviewed prior to, and I know we're talking in sort of abstract, suck a little bit out of here and suck a little bit out of there and tighten this up, but I think there are specific maneuvers that can happen to achieve the reduction. And I think seeing those in conjunction with the scale and the height issue would be beneficial for everyone. I understand the reticence to pursue that because it's more time and effort, and but at the same time I would say, you know, I don't want to diminish the fact that we've come a long way. And this process is, we may be in double digits at this point in meetings, but we've come a long way here. And I think we're close. But I understand not willing to or not wanting to go that little bit further to get that. But I just don't think we're in a position to just have it stated or enumerated with an approval. I think we would feel more comfortable seeing the implementation of these things in this format and then making sure we're sort of on the same page, and then hopefully moving forward. But that's kind of where we're at. I personally am fine with, if you want to go through specifics of what we're talking about, if that would help you at this stage to do that. But if there's not a willingness to want to do that, then I think that'd probably be a waste of time. But we can.
If I could comment in the items that we've talked about, will revise the design, and we hope that it wouldn't be a negative.
Sure, I understand your question. If you, and I'll let the city I'm not sure I thoroughly understand your question, but if it's a procedural question relating to how conditions of approval get implemented, I can answer it. I can also defer to the city attorney. But since I'm not understanding it, I don't want to jump in and answer something that might be the misunderstanding.
If I may, I think the concern, is this on?
Yeah.
I think the concern that the commission is expressing is, even if there can be a meeting of the minds this evening between the applicant and a majority of the commission regarding the additional design features that need to happen to reduce the mass and scale, some things that have been suggested are reducing the ceiling height and also reducing some percentages of a couple of bedrooms to push the walls back a little. Even if there can be a meeting of minds that's acceptable, the commission needs to see what it looks like. And to approve it with conditions, they are questioning how they would be able to ever see the result again, and that's the problem. That's the reluctance to just give you an approval with conditions. I think, if I might suggest, perhaps a way to proceed would be to try to flesh out conceptually some of the things, design features that might help here, and see if the applicant will give it a thumbs up and thumbs down, so that everyone knows whether it would be worthwhile to ask them to bring back another design that conforms with something that there might be a meeting of the minds on this evening.
I would just like to say, I think, different people on the commission have some ideas about what we think could happen that's not so far from where we are here that could go forward. I don't think any of us are willing to say, okay, go ahead without seeing the plans, because that's not something our commission has done in something, in general, and especially in something as controversial as this. We want to see what we're voting on, and we can talk all around the concept of exactly what we like to do, but I need to see a concrete plan, because things happen between what gets said and how the plan gets drawn, so that we can't, I would never feel comfortable in something as important as this, saying, yes, I have a concept and I want these changes and do it, and then we don't see a plan. But I think that we can flesh out what we're thinking of here, how much bulk we'd like to see reduced. And then, we can we've discussed this before, and we can, see if there's a consensus among the planning commission to go forward with that or not. And if there is, and if you were willing to come back to us with these changes, and and we could see those plans, we probably could come to an agreement. But I don't think we're there yet, and I think that, we can tell you exactly what we're thinking of. I mean, I'll tell you what I'm thinking of. What I would like to see is the second floor reduced from 9 feet to 8, and the first floor reduced from, say, 9 to 8 foot 6 inches. That still gives a little more volume to the first floor, but it takes off 1.5 feet in the height of this building. That's what I'm proposing. And then our chair has some ideas that he's mentioned about ways to reconfigure the rooms on the on the second floor, which he thinks can reduce the bulk and would probably end up in reducing the square footage by maybe 200 square feet or something.
Yeah.
But would push it back farther, which would reduce the look from the front and from the west and from the south. But we would need to see it. I don't think we can vote without actually seeing the plans.
No, I understand.
I mean, I think that we're that close. I personally think we're that close. And I would hate to have you go away and not come back with something that I think personally, I can't speak for everybody here, that I think I could vote to approve. But we would have to see it. I mean, you know how controversial this is in Sierra Madre. And to ask us
Understood that.
and to ask us to approve something that we haven't seen it's a non-starter here. And
We've been told that we're very close
You can
before
ask as often as you want, but that's a non.
the meetings and hear all this. But
always-
I
it's
want to
always a
say we've been
landscape
told we.
I mean, it's right on one plan and it's wrong on the other plan.
Okay.
Mrs. Chang?
All right, I apologize for that, and I apologize on behalf of our consultants. But we have been told twice before that we're very close. But first, on lot 21, very close, clever solution. And then next meeting, oh no, we don't like that one. Lot 24 is very close. We like that one. So we pursued lot 24, and we made a lot of changes to lot 24. Now we're very close again.
So Adele,
Been very close many times. So from the standpoint of our clients, there's some reluctance to keep going. I just asked their representatives, and our actual client not being here is difficult, but the direction was to ask for a up or down vote.
I would, all I can tell you is I have to work within the authority I'm given. And so that's why I'm trying to respect where you're at and what you feel you need, and I understand it. I mean, the visual. I think Adele was trying to articulate the client's concern about perhaps if they do it and it gets revised, then maybe somebody sees something else, and maybe it goes another round, and that's an equally legitimate concern. So balancing those two, I'm trying to sort of say, if you can approve it with conditions, great. If you can't because you can't see it, understood, then articulating what you feel is missing, as I thought the chair did a very nice job earlier. I just didn't catch all of it.
Yeah, I think for the record, I mean, understanding where you're at with what you're able to give, I would like for the record to kind of go through how I think some of these manipulations can happen, whether, not as a condition of approval, but I think just to articulate those. So I think to achieve sort of the reduction of the bulk and mass on the second floor, on the ground floor, one of the first things that needs to be looked at is a shifting or rearranging, not really rearranging, but shifting of the stair and the powder room as a block, and to look at perhaps shifting those elements to the east, I guess, or towards the nook. I'm looking at a plan here, first floor plan. This would allow, on the second floor, to shift the bulk and mass on the front, which is the west side, to take all of that mass basically away. Bedroom 3, so the hallway and all of that stays the same. It's the stair is now shifted up. What happens is bedroom 3, you enter it the same way. It's just truncated a little bit. You would enter off of the return hallway where you have, I guess, a linen or storage there. You would enter off of that. Bedroom 3, by moving this, now the main element I have to tell you that really gets changed or altered is this Jack and Jill bathroom closet configuration. So you've got something that resembles more of a square. If you were to look at possibly arranging that in a more classic Jack and Jill fashion, where both bedrooms were to enter onto a common double sink area and have the tub and toilet areas to the north exterior there, you could truncate that area into a much shallower depth, which would allow bedroom 3 to push up, which in turn would allow the bulk and the mass on the front to be reduced by somewhere on the magnitude of 5 or 6 feet back further. By not, at the same time, not sacrificing reducing the size of the bedroom. Bedroom 3 would change in shape a little, but not reduce in percentage of size. Bedroom 2, there would need to be a 10% reduction in size, mainly coming from the east-west dimension. And then the master bedroom, there would have to be a reduction on the south side, and that's mainly taking off, I think it was a 1.4 feet or something like that, a little bit of square footage. The size of that would still remain somewhere in the magnitude of 16 feet by 15.5 feet, but you would reduce that by around 9%. And then there was a little bit of reworking of the master bathroom, but very minimal to kind of get some of that square footage on the north side to pull that whole facade and mass back to reduce that by 1 foot, I believe. So, but the majority of the bulk and mass would come off the front of the house on the second story. And those things can be achieved. I went through the exercise and did it, so I know it's possible. But it's a matter of, you wouldn't even sacrifice on the ground level you have an access from the motor court into the house. Right now it resides at the base of the stair going into the dining area. That would change. It would now be coming through the top of the living room towards where it says stair hall. That would be your access straight out to the motor court into the stair hall, and that staircase would move up by some square footage up. I think you'd be able to retain your access to the basement. All that would stay the same. It would work. So.
I'd just like to note something about the procedure here that we would have to go through today. We don't currently, I have a question for the city attorney. We don't currently have a resolution for approval, right?
Pardon me, you do not. Whatever decision you make this evening, you're going to have a second meeting anyway in order to approve the resolution, whichever way you go. So no matter what you're inclined to do, it's going to take.
It's a sophisticated design that's going to really fit into and set the tone for the architecture, and we get back something that they sort of feel like was taken back, and I sort of see that too. So we're making a huge compromise. We're giving them a very conventional house in this area that doesn't take advantage of any of the things that we were alluding to before. And so in terms of like trying to make good for the community, I'd like to see it too as well. So
I don't know if you were having a conversation, I don't know if you heard what I said, which was that in any case, if we decide to approve or disapprove this, we still have to have another meeting because we don't have a resolution for approval on our hands.
Right, now you're
So so that if we can come to some agreement about this, that the concept that we see is a concept that you would be able to do, then we can have the resolution for approval at the next meeting. We can have these change plans and we could come to an agreement and vote it up or down. And that would just be that would be it.
Right, I understand. What I was going to ask is if you could continue this to your next meeting so that we can take all these suggestions and draw them up and talk with the client, see if it works.
What I was going to ask of.
Just,
Oh,
if
sorry,
I
sorry,
could,
go ahead.
given the list,
Mm-hmm.
what I'm now dealing with is we need to see what it looks like too.
Yeah. So that
Okay.
was where I was.
So, we're at a point where we're balancing sort of all the things. Everybody's now gotten to the point where they need to visualize, and visualize means draw. And again, trust me when I say I understood about half of the concepts. Some of the others just, I'm not an architect and I don't know what they mean. So, and I'm not going to pretend to be an architect. That said, if you could just continue this to your next meeting, and we will draw it up, look with it, talk to the client. If it works, fly it to staff, to you. If parts of it do and parts of it don't, we'll at least be able to tell you why. But right now, I don't have that available.
And I was going to add, I don't know procedurally if it's possible, but if this can be an exhibit or something that then the applicant could view or not with staff.
I completely understand exactly what you're saying. I know what it looks like too.
Well,
So-
Well, to make it available in case.
I could.
That way there's no.
I could work with Adele.
Okay.
And, if there's anything you want to share with me, I can make sure and facilitate that with Adele.
We can, this is something that we can turn around in a very short period of time. If you're willing to continue to your next meeting, which is a couple of weeks away,
Yeah.
we will be back with drawings.
Adele, do you think,
My concern is there's usually a huge amount of time in between, and then fix this and do the story pose and, blah, blah, blah. It's so lengthy.
Boy, we really got you in knots here.
I'm trying to be myself here.
I know.
Everybody else is.
We usually set
The simple answer is the client needs to visualize it. You need to visualize it. I think we finally hit that piece of common ground, and for tonight, that may be where we need to sort of say, okay, we've got that information. She understands it, thankfully. We need to get it drawn up so that everybody can visualize it. We need to go over it with the client. So if you just continue this to your next meeting, we'll do that lickety-split and be ready to roll. And as I say, we're going to be able either to do it or not. Parts of it probably yes. Parts of it, we're going to be able to at least give you some feedback and say, yes, this works, this works, this works, this doesn't, this doesn't, this doesn't, or it all does, or whatever. Okay?
Danny, I know we usually have that first meeting for the plan, but I think we can fit this.
yeah, and if it is, the next meeting is October 2nd. It's always a quick turnaround when we're looking at revised plans, but, I'm hearing from Adele that, I think she understands what the commission has articulated. And, if we can look at a midweek next week, submittal, that gives you like Wednesday, that's the 24th That gives me enough time, just enough time to be able to turn around and give it to the commission. But the earlier in the week, next week, the better. It's like Wednesday at the latest. But
So that gives you how much time to turn it around?
I'm giving the packet out by the end of that week, next week. So I don't have more time in order for the commission to have their materials.
I believe we can turn it around, because I understand what it is. We may not have for you the 3D drawing and, you know, all of that, which I don't know how much that affects
I
you.
think the most critical thing are the plans, what you have here.
Bring that to the
How about
hearing.
if plans had
Submitting us
shown
over-
the sort of if plans showed side-by-side floor plans that indicate how the shift
Yeah.
and reduction changes by way of, you know, showing the difference of the walls,
Yeah.
exterior walls being moved. So it's a diagrammatic.
Right, so if we can have, you know, what we have now and then the change as well.
As
so
well
we
as,
can
as
look
well
at
as,
square feet, 50, so what do you, what's your order of magnitude, a little bit?
Okay.
I don't,
I mean, a little bit.
A, we don't know.
Yeah.
B, let's cross that bridge when we get there, because if we don't have to do it, then this is a moot conversation.
I mean, what I'm gonna get at is this, look, I didn't work out all the details, and there are details.
Right.
Trust me. There's
Right.
head height issues, there's clearances, I get all that. You know, but in the time I spent to look at this, I didn't need to add a single square foot to the first floor, and I was able to reduce the massing on the second floor.
Understood.
So there is an exhibit out there that shows how it can be done. Now, the details, the devil's in the details, I get that. And there may be some shifting, but it can be done. So, I am with you, cross that bridge when we get there, but
Right.
I don't think we'll need to.
Right. Understood. But you're keeping an open mind, and if she comes back and offers you a very logical reason, and you go, yeah, I didn't think of that, then that's a possibility. But since it's only a possibility, not a probability, I'm just suggesting we not spend time tonight on it.
Agreed.
That's fine.
Agreed. All right.
I think with
Date
that,
certain.
are you willing to make a motion now? Are you ready to make a motion for a
I will make a
continuance?
motion to continue to our next meeting, which is October 2nd.
October 2nd.
Date certain,
I'll
okay.
second.
A date certain, yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm just gonna sit over here.
Wasn't it last time? Oh, yeah. Yeah, it did. Okay. It's 9:30.
Oh, did he walk away with?
All right, so we still have another item on tonight's agenda, so we will move to item 3, Historic Cultural Landmark Designation, 354 North Cannon Drive.
And the presentation will be made by Leticia Cardoso on this.
Thank you. The next item is an application to consider a nomination as a local historic cultural landmark for the property located at 345 North Cannon Drive. The property owners, Rodney and Joan Spears, submitted an application to nominate their property as a historical cultural landmark. Pursuant to the municipal code, the city council may approve a request for designation upon recommendation by the planning commission if the property meets the required findings based on historic or architectural criteria. The residence is a 3,006 square foot home, excluding the garage, and it was built in 1914 and then enlarged later on in 1922. According to a fact sheet with information submitted by the applicant, the house was designed in the craftsman style by an architect by the name of F.L. Stiff. The residence is located on a .88 acre lot that was originally purchased from the heirs of Nathaniel Carter by William Knott and his wife Lucy Knott, who owned the property for 2 years before selling it to John and Clara Aykroyd. The property was subsequently sold to the Kleems in 1919, who completely remodeled and expanded the original house and then transferred ownership to their daughter, Ruth Kleem, in 1923. Her husband was Gilbert Bovard, a well-known physician descendant of the Tufts, a pioneer Sierra Madre family, and was involved in the development of the University of Southern California. The property was later sold in 1940 to the Lentz. Mr. Philip Lentz was superintendent of the Glen Falls Insurance Company in Los Angeles, and then in 1953 the property was again sold to the Frays, who occupied until 1999, and then they sold it to the current owners, Rodney and Joan Spears. The Spears have restored the residence, added footings and sheer walls, expanded the garage, actually rebuilt the garage. It's a new garage. Replaced the northeast damaged room and collapsing rear decks, guardrails and fences. They also replaced the exterior redwood siding to match the siding that they claim was the original siding of the house. And they also installed new plumbing and wiring. And also added shingle siding to the upper facade of the residence. Another that the site is associated with local, state, or national cultural, socioeconomic, political, or natural history, events or persons significant to the history of Sierra Madre. In addition to those findings, there's also a finding required for consistency with the general plan. Staff finds that the nomination application lacks information necessary at this time to make the findings based on a few reasons. The first one is that while it is a craftsman style home, the application does not provide information regarding the distinctive character defining features of the residence that embody that style of architecture. The information that was provided was limited to a fact sheet, which did not include specific information regarding the extant architectural features of the residence that might have historical value. It also did not provide information on the builder or architect to determine whether the resident is representative or is one of the few remaining examples of a notable builder or architect. The significant features and owners information that was provided by the applicant lists a few existing features of the residence and work done to repair it, but it doesn't include information specifically on how the building was repaired to retain original architectural features and how they are considered distinctive of the craftsman style. The single the shingle siding added to the second story is typical of craftsman architecture. However, there was no evidence provided to verify that the new siding was consistent with the original. And staff was also not able to locate any original photographs of the house in the archives of the Sierra Madre Public Library to verify the information. And lastly, the fact sheet states that the house, if restored, will probably qualify for listing due to its association with the earliest days of Sierra Madre. However, while the evidence provided in a fact sheet shows that the owners were noteworthy and accomplished, they did not appear to be significant to the history of Sierra Madre. The environmental determination, the project can qualify, the nomination can qualify for a categorical exemption. Public notice was provided as required, and the alternatives before you tonight are to recommend approval of the request for historic designation, stating the reasons why the findings can be made, and direct staff to come back and provide a resolution for approval. Another alternative is to recommend denial of the request, The third alternative is to continue the matter and provide direction to the applicant for further information. Staff recommends that you continue the matter to allow the applicant to come back with additional information to substantiate the request for designation. And that concludes my report. Oh, by the way, I do have some photos of the property that I would like to show. These were provided by the applicant, and this photograph shows the condition of the property when it was purchased by the applicant. This is the north side of the house, and it is shown here with the shingles on the second story, and then the new siding on the first story as well. This is a photograph of just one of the French doors and the wood ceiling, as well as as you can see here, is the new siding that was done by the applicants. This shows the older garage that, according to the applicant, was not structurally safe, and they basically had to reconstruct the garage so that there is a new garage, as you can see here. And that was done by the applicant. Again, this is an older picture of the house when it was purchased by the applicants. And then this shows the new siding, and both on the shingles here and the siding of the house on the first done. And here are just the findings that I mentioned earlier. So that's basically what I wanted to show you, the photographs. The applicants are here. If you have any questions, and I can also answer questions if you have any.
Do we, yeah, totally, Leticia, go ahead.
If we do this to a historic house now, I see they've got like a Home Depot shed there. Do they have to move that?
That's no longer there. Actually, that was that was an original picture. That's gone.
Motorcycles that were in the ivy and.
Yeah, that would not be part of the historic designation. Just to make that clear, yes, thank you.
So, Leticia, question for you on, it sounds like there's a lack of information or verification of some of the historical value of the home. Was there and I'm trying to think back, not too long ago, we had another project that came here, and there was a very thorough report prepared by an architectural historian, I think. Is there a document in this case, or is it just a fact sheet that kind of?
The fact sheet is what was provided by the applicant.
But not a detailed.
Correct.
document.
That was the extent, yes.
So, I'm trying to remember if what you're thinking about. Generally, don't we get more information that sort of says what the period of relevance is and that kind of information for this sort of application?
That is often provided along with the application.
That, this is what's representative of this period, this is the original, this is not original, these are the changes, and so we have more information exactly about what the historical period we're talking about is, because apparently this building was completely rebuilt in 1919 or 1923 or something.
Yeah.
So that, is that the period we're looking at? I just think we need more information.
And that's usually prepared by an expert of some sort. in
An
the
architectural
field.
historian,
Yeah.
correct, typically.
So is that something the Spears have in the process of doing, or not, or?
It was not
Yeah.
submitted with the application. It is something that
Okay.
if you choose to do so, you can ask for it in addition to what was provided.
There is a report.
Do you want to come up?
Sure.
Come up to the podium.
Rodney Spears, 354 North Cannon. They're in, I don't know whether you got all the same, this morning at 9:45, the planning department showed up at our house and we gave them a tour. I don't know if anyone else has been to the property. It's available anytime for you to walk the grounds and the gardens and around the building. There, with the paperwork that I had submitted, and I'm a structural engineer, so I don't do this on a regular basis. It is about a 3,100 square foot house on 18,000 square feet of land, 38,000 square feet of land, excuse me. So we're not trying to squeeze something onto a small area. In here is the building biographer, Tim Gregory. This was given to us by, I believe, Judy Webb had this report done for us about the time we moved in 2000. Yeah, there are a lot of things that we changed. We tried to find out what the second floor was originally covered in. You people have had to suffer through the structural segment of the architectural exam, and so I wanted to get the stucco off if possible, and no one seemed to know what was there originally. The second floor went on in 1922, and the first floor was 1914. The carpenter in 22 was wretched. Anyway, I was able to, when we took the stucco off, of course, then we could put plywood everywhere and then put shingles on, and it cut the seismic forces down by about half.
Do you think that stucco was original from 1915?
Well, since the second floor was done in 22,
Oh, okay.
I think that probably didn't precede that.
Yeah.
It took a while to lay out the foundations because when they put the second floor on, they expanded the first floor by 3 feet, and as you crawled through the cobwebs and things to try and make measurements, you never could get the house and the foundations to fit until you found out you had two foundation walls side by side.
Oh, yeah, yeah. How about the stonework in the front? Did you reconstruct that, or?
No, the stonework, the only thing that we reconstructed, because the fireplace itself was broken at the top floor and it was just covered over with roofing. So we had a stonemason come in. We took it down to the second floor, tied it back in with straps. You can't see them. And then with reinforcing steel, build it back up above the roof and tied it into the roof too for lateral loads.
Yeah.
And I have to lay on the side of the bed that's closest to that fireplace.
Did you happen to see, we had one of these Manish mentioned about 3 or 4 months ago. Did you happen to see the report that they hired an architectural historian to do for them?
I did not.
That thing sailed right through with a very positive crowd. It was incredibly comprehensive, and actually I think we wound up in the library. It was such a good piece of history. I strongly advise you to contact that individual. He's local, and
Okay,
I think
then
he
I
could
find
solve
out
most of your problems. I'm sure he would be interested in your.
We can provide a copy of that to you.
It was
Got it in the first couple of inches. So what we did was we took the first 1x off, cut them shorter, and then re-roofed it.
Yeah.
So we got rid of the damage to that, and then now we have caps on some of the bigger beams out of copper
Yeah.
to protect
But
them.
it's a fantastic remodel. I really applaud you for it
Thank
in
you.
renovation.
Yeah,
It
the
was
lady here does all the colors. I'm just
Oh, yeah.
black and white.
That's amazing.
I think that's the other thing that was really helpful in the last property that we reviewed was to see your ongoing renovation plan and some of the expenses that are associated with it, so that, again, people understand that it's not just about the tax benefit of it, but it's about the monies that.
Yeah, I don't want a tax benefit for it. I just, we'd like to do whatever we can to protect it from being leveled someday. We've seen enough of that in Arcadia.
Yeah.
What we just need is a little more information
Sure.
about what makes it historical, why. So sort of why, the why information.
Well, the best part is a glass of wine out on the deck at the end of the day.
Well, that's
One
very
more
nice.
question, what about the windows? Any existing windows from,
Most all of them are existing. We had to put in new place. And so we made it into a small half bath instead of the old washroom. Well, thank you very much. We'll follow up on this. As I say, we got this morning and I wasn't sure where we were yet. And we'll see what we can do we'll get a hold of the historian.
Yeah, that'd be great. I mean, and we look forward to.
Check how much he's gonna cost.
Well.
Very good. Thank you all.
Thank you.
thank you.
So do we need a motion to continue this to a date not certain?
I think we have to open
Sure.
the public hearing.
Oh,
Well, yeah.
Hi, I'm Pat Alcorn, and can I just add that I think the environment, part of the historical aspect of this is not the house alone, but the site that it's sitting on. It's right at the base of the canyon. It is conducive to everything that goes on in the canyon. So I think that would be a consideration too, would be actually the site itself. Thank you.
Put up a sign that says gateway to the canyon. Insult ticket.
Barbara Lee Klein, and I'd love to see them come back with a little bit more historical. I'm glad you asked the questions. You kept on going with so the windows, etc. I remember the hippie canyon, so I'm so glad that this house has been redone, and I think the names of Tuff and Carter is a good place to go ahead and start, and the indigenous materials that lead everybody to the canyon. So I know when I first got up this
Erected in 1914. It certainly will go through remodeling, repair, even additions throughout the years. And it's important to have that record on file to really substantiate the historic significance. What we would be asking if, when this does return and we're ready to determine its historic significance, and if in fact you arrive at that, we would be asking you to provide, and we'll work all together, provide a list of what those character-defining features are of the property. And even as one of the speakers mentioned that one can be its setting within the area, the setting, even the landscaping, even the front yard. And if you recall, when you've looked at previous ones, you've identified what you find are historically or character-defining features of that building. And so I encourage you to visit it. You get a really good idea of the setting as well,
So
in addition to the home.
with this particular designation, there is no tax benefit? There is no property tax favorability?
One of the benefits of being on the local historic list is the potential to have, to be on the Mills Act, which
Right.
provides a tax benefit, but it's not automatic.
So that's a separate application?
That's a separate application in which they would be eligible for, should they wish to do
Does this
that.
come before that, or do they come, are they
No,
they're
it
totally
would-
separate things?
you have to do this first.
You have to do this first.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. But it's that among, there are other benefits as well, in terms of permits and building permits are done at
Designate-
congratulate you because you did a wonderful job.
This was on the agenda.
No, it was on the agenda, but giving them all the time that you did and all the assistance and help. And so I'm being off the agenda by saying, I think they should redo their design altogether. See, I'm being kind of funny right here because they're asking for so much input. So if I can, say, just build one story and make it all natural wood-like features to fit into the property. And they'll fly right through and not have any difficulties like they were. Because honestly, I was a little bit afraid that it was getting close to being brought into court. But you guys did a good job of bringing it back. And they did a good job of listening. But
I mean,
to me, this was a
That's too late. But we have picked up 2 butane lighters. I don't know why they're being left behind on the dirt, but I have a pretty good idea. And it's only gonna take one spark to light that hill on fire. I'll say it again.
I'd like to speak to the issue of water. You're only allowed to water with sprinklers 2 days a week, either Monday and Thursday or Tuesday and Friday. And I think anyone who has a super green lawn is watering more than they're allowed. And we have a real water shortage here, so please, only water twice a week with your sprinklers.
Might be spray paint.
It might be spray paint, but I
And
think
lots
if
of
your lawn isn't,
fertilizer. Lots
if
of
your
fertilizer.
fertilizer, even if there's
Yeah.
not water, it still won't be that green. So,
gotta water it in.
yeah, you gotta,
Yeah,
yeah.
well,
still gotta
no,
water.
but, no, I have a friend that, down in Arcadia, he's only watering twice a week, and it's so green, but he uses a lot of fertilizer.
Well, anyway, please save water. Please, please.
I was just gonna reiterate, and you probably already have in your notes, but what Sean spoke to, is that something we can agendize or at some future later date?
We can, yeah, we'll look at your schedule and,
Inconsistencies.
we'll begin with a discussion, item and see where you'd like to go, but I did
Okay.
hear what his comments were and,
We're gonna keep
You have-
talking it to death again.
Yeah, but I'm not sure why we are. I mean, if we're gonna talk about it again, there should be a reason. I mean, I'd like to hear council's point of view on whether we're open to some form of risk for the agreed upon.
Okay, we disallowed a project down on Orange Grove. That the gentleman went and reduced the square footage, so it did not come before us. What is the ruling on how much your front lawn, or your front area of your house has to be landscaped?
the current, code says that 50% of the area should be landscaped. That's what you adopted, well, the city council, you recommended and the city council adopted in May 2013.
Okay, well, the house split that the guy did off of, that is on Orange Grove, that was the house that came before us where he was gonna have 2,800 square feet of covered porches on it type things. His whole front area is pavers. I don't see that that's landscape, that's hard landscape, but I don't think that's landscape.
Right. Well, you know, we looked at that, people had asked about that. You did not have a standard when this application was submitted prior to May 2013. And so, it met the code at the time it was submitted for plan check.
Cause it's permeable, right? I mean,
It
that's.
is
it's
permeable. but
Permeable paving.
You then further clarified and the city council then approved what is considered landscaping and it's defined in our new R1 code, so.
But that happened at a later date.
That happened afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, I
Yep.
mean, you've had the day of the month, I think that's.
All right, with that, we are adjourned.